This previously uploaded video now includes our 2024 winter testing. If this is your first time watching, welcome and please enjoy. If you're returning for our winter test results, you can use the chapters feature to jump straight to that section right after our road, wet, and dry results summary.
Brent, we have the trusty Camry behind us, and you know that can only mean one thing. It's our second passenger car touring tire test of the year.
Yeah, and based on some comments from our last touring tire test, this test has a lot of products people are going to be really excited about. Our last test, 2024 Test 4, had 10 kind of mid-tier touring products. This test has 11 premium touring tires in it.
Yeah, and of those 11 products, 9 of them are Grand Touring. 6 of those are all-weather. That includes the brand new Goodyear Assurance Weather Ready 2 and the brand new Vredestein Quad-Track Pro Plus. The other 2 tires are standard touring, and there's another new product there. That's the Continental True Contact Tour 54, and of course we threw in the consumer favorite, the Michelin Defender 2.
Yeah, and those standard touring products focus on delivering the maximum amount of mileage, but they still have to do the other touring tire things well, which is wet traction, light snow traction, and of course on-road ride and noise comfort. And that's where our testing begins.
We're here on the road ride on Bridgestone Turanza Quiet Track. It is one of 2 Bridgestone tires in this test. This one is the non-3 Peak Mountain Snowflake branded version. So It's all season as opposed to all weather as the 3 Peak Mountain Snowflake branded touring tires are commonly known. Ride, it's cushioned over big bumps, or relatively well cushioned over big bumps. It doesn't control body movements quite as well as some of the other touring tires in the test.
Yeah, there is a little bit of secondary motion. You know, after you hit the bump, it hangs on for longer than it should. Just a little bit, just a hair, yeah.
Well, noise comfort is pretty similar in that regard. There are some tones, there's kind of distinct noise, especially over any kind of coarse surface.
It picks up the coarser, the textured asphalt, the cross-cut concrete a little more than some of the tires in the test. Yeah.
Right. One place that it does, stand out or stand amongst the best in the test is steering, though.
Yeah.
The responsiveness compared to really a lot of the tires in this test, it responds very quickly to inputs. There's no really dead spot, and it feels pretty natural and almost kind of sporty. Almost kind of, yeah. Bridgestone Weather Peak. It is 3 Peak Mountain Snowflake branded, so that's commonly known as all weather in the industry.
The Weather Peak is compliant over the big bumps, but it lacks a little more motion control than even its all-season counterpart. Just smaller, especially repetitive bumps. Yeah, it strings them together and just feels just kind of loose everywhere.
What do you think about noise?
Slightly more elevated, perhaps, than some of the more premium, real high-end, Grand Touring tires out there today that we've tested.
I'm behind the wheel, so I'll talk about steering. Feels like a little bit more of an effort or more input before it starts responding. Doesn't respond quite as sharply as a lot of the other products here.
Unfortunately, you're right.
This is the Continental True Contact Tour 54. This is the first of the 2 standard touring all-season tires that we have in this test. They tend to focus more on longevity, on delivering the maximum tread life. It just did what it's supposed to do and kind of didn't differentiate itself in any way.
It's a standard touring tire. Punching it out with Grand Touring tire.
Right?
I mean, that's commendable.
That is, absolutely, because if you're gonna get, 80,000 miles or whatever the case may be out of a tire, you don't want it to be an unpleasant 80,000 miles.
No. So yeah, noise from the Continental, it's kind of similar to the Quiet Track in a sense, that it did create a little bit of kind of a resonance. It kind of picks up on the coarser surfaces. Kind of
particularly, in this surface right here. Yes.
Yeah, and this cross-cut concrete on the highway at 65.
I tell you what, one place that it stands out or does kind of differentiate itself is steering. Yes, the third criteria. It just points, it's in lockstep with what my hands are doing. It feels good. Like here on this off-ramp, it's just putting the car exactly where I want it to. No muss, no fuss. It's good. Goodyear Assurance Weather Ready 2. This is another all-weather tire, so it's 3 Peak Mountain Snowflake branded. Tell me about the ride quality, Brent.
Yeah, big bumps are cushioned. It's comfortable. And we were both like, ooh.
Unexpected and a pleasant surprise, Noise, a couple of missteps, nothing major, nothing really significant, but, there's a little bit of a growly undertone. I think we were both very enamored with the steering on this tire. It is almost performance tire, kind of urgent and sporty. It is natural feeling. It builds, response with more effort in a sort of a progressive way. It feels really nice. Michelin Defender 2. This is the second standard touring all-season tire in our test.
Right.
This is one of 3 Michelin products. This is supposed to be the longest lasting tire in this test. It's a little firm.
Yeah.
It's not bad by any means. The thing that stood out the most to me, always has when we've driven this tire, is there's a little bit of choppiness, especially over repetitive impacts, right? This is the exact spot that it stands out the most. If you have repetitive bumps, you may notice that. Noise comfort.
It won't compete with any of the real high-end Grand Touring all-season tires in this test or anywhere, frankly. But yeah, no, it's good. It's fine, especially on smooth pavement. It's doing well enough.
On-ramp.
Yes.
Onto the highway. What do you think?
Yeah, a little bit of a dead spot, kind of right on center, which is something we've found before. Not bad, probably absolutely fine for standard touring all season, but it's certainly not sporty.
Right. It's one of those things that if you weren't testing a bunch of tires, maybe you wouldn't notice. This is the Michelin Cross Climate 2.
Is it?
We have, it really is. So it's 3 Peak Mountain Snowflake branded.
The ride is great. It's firm but well controlled.
What about noise?
I am happy with the noise on this tire. They model every tire, every size to get rid of any kind of weird harmonics and to blend everything together. And it really does a good job on this tire. The steering is what we've found in past experiences as well.
It is pretty quick to respond. It doesn't require a whole lot of input or a whole lot of effort to elicit response from it. We've always wanted a little bit more, dare I say it, on a car with electric power steering, a little bit more weight or resistance to inputs.
The Michelin Primacy Tour AS.
The third of 3 Michelin touring tires in this test. So what space does that fit in? We are assuming it's supposed to be the most comfortable, the most comfort-focused tire in the test.
And it's good.
It's good, right?
Comfortable. It's kind of taut. You kind of feel more of the undulations, more of the smaller cracks. It's a firm-based touring tire.
Noise, I'm gonna take noise because I love talking about the good stuff. Let's start with the best characteristic. On any kind of smooth pavement, it's nearly silent. It is so good. Nothing that the tire is doing is louder than the engine noise, the wind noise, or the conversation from your co-driver. This is a smooth surface, so Brent just wanted to not hear the tire. What do you think about steering?
Oh, I sound like a broken record. It's similar to the Defender 2, though.
It feels like it's from the same family.
No, it's a little dull right on center, and then you kind of give more input, and it ramps things up.
On the highway, it felt like it was moving just a little bit, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have much self-aligning torque when, passing through corners.
It wasn't obvious. It was just like,
Right.
I feel like I'm having to do just a little bit more.
Pirelli Cinturato Weather Active. This is the all-weather component, the all-weather half of the Pirelli pair that we have in here. Ride quality is not too pointy, very well composed.
Soaks up the real small stuff, like,
Stuff, rounds over the big stuff.
Yeah.
Like noise comfort is in a similar boat.
They really worked their magic with this one. It's solid here on the road. I'm impressed.
Yeah, the steering's really good too. It is responsive, not like performance tire urgent, it doesn't feel like it's trying to be sporty, but it just gives you what you want in a natural and expected and intuitive way.
I wanted to say that word.
Feels natural.
Extremely natural, yeah.
Right? It's just right for a touring tire. This is the Pirelli P7 AS Plus 3, and this is the second of 2 Pirelli products.
Yeah, both Grand Touring all-season tires.
Both Grand Touring all-season, right.
Weather active, though, is just all weather.
Correct. Ride quality from the P7 AS Plus 3, very good.
I'll be a little conspiracy theorist here.
Ooh, I love
it. It feels awfully similar to kind of how the Weather Active felt.
I thought the same thing.
They're definitely in the same family, in the same brand, which shouldn't come as a surprise, but
this one's also very good in noise.
after hearing it on the very smooth new asphalt, I expected it to be a little bit quieter on kind of like the, the mild, just like normal asphalt we have around here.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was a little higher than I would have expected, maybe.
Steering, you're driving. What do you think about the steering?
Again,
kind of similar to the Weather Active, which is good. It's a little fast on center, but it still tracks straight ahead. It feels good. It is a responsive touring tire.
Right? I thought so too. The other Pirelli tire, the Cinturado Weather Active, it doesn't respond quite as quickly to the inputs, but it feels a little bit more natural. Whereas this one, it's less of a steering input to elicit more of a response. This is the Toyo Celsius Sport. It feels like the firmest tire that we've tested. Might even be the firmest tire in this test. Big hits hit a little bit harder than others.
Feel them.
Small bumps, you feel each one. It's still a good ride for a touring tire. It's not objectionable in any way. It's just interesting that we have all of these products and a lot of them are a bit more round, and this one is a bit more pointy. You feel stuff. In terms of noise on coarse surfaces, there are a couple tones that you hear. They do blend together, but it doesn't fade to the background as readily as some of the other tires.
There's some interaction with the coarser surfaces, absolutely, yeah. But it's pretty good on the smooth stuff. It does a good job mixing those things together at a decently low volume.
And what do you think about steering as well?
Steering feels sporty for the category in general. Responsive, feels like it has a little bit of weight to it.
I think it's important to note, neither of us scored it higher than the other best in the test steering type tires. It just feels different. It feels like it has a different focus. It's a little bit more, like you said, sporty or even performance tire focused in the steering feel. Vredestein Quad-Track Pro Plus. And this is another all-weather tire, so it's 3 Peak Mountain Snowflake branded. And first off, the ride, I think, is very good. It's about as firm as, most of the good tires on the big bumps. Small things, it actually does a very nice job of eliminating. I will see things in the road and expect to feel them, and they generally are less of an ordeal or less of an event than I had anticipated in my mind. Noise as well.
It did a good job kind of blending the crosscut harmonics, where we get some of that resonance.
Yes.
It did a good job limiting that and kind of blending that into just more like a hushed growl, yeah.
Right? What do you think about the steering on the Vredestein Quad-Track Pro Plus?
Well, it's not bad.
It's not bad. And
No, it's not bad, it's good.
Yeah.
It does respond once you kind of get it off center a little bit, give it some steering input, and it does ramp up response, which is appreciated.
Right.
It tracks nice straight ahead.
And I like the way that it kind of built response with more steering input. Okay, so ride quality, noise comfort, steering, and on-road handling. They're very important characteristics that drivers will have to deal with every day, every time they drive.
Right.
But we also want to find out which tires excel when conditions are less than perfect.
Yeah, so to test them in the wet, we run each tire through 60 to 0 braking tests. Then we put them around the skid pad in both damp conditions and in standing water to test their lateral traction. Then we put it all together around the track to see how each tire handles those dynamic emergency maneuvers. In our 60 to 0 braking test, the Michelin Primacy Tour AS delivered a strong performance, standing out from the competition by stopping on average 7 feet shorter than the next in test Pirelli Cinturado Weather Active, which managed to get the job done in 147 feet. After those two front runners, the grouping tightened up around 153 feet, with the standard touring True Contact Tour 54 among them. Its other standard touring counterpart, the Defender 2, was a few feet further, and led the bottom half of competitors, which was rounded out by significantly longer stopping distances by the all-weather Bridgestone Weather Peak. Around the skid pad, Vredestein's Quad-Track Pro Plus pulled the highest lateral traction at 3/4 of a G, and only 4/100ths less than the standing water lateral traction test. A rather large group followed 2/100ths of a G back, with the Goodyear Assurance Weather Ready 2 also delivering very good deeper water lateral grip. Once again impressing the team was the standard touring True Contact Tour 54, which managed lateral traction figures close to the group of top Grand Touring products, albeit with some fall-off around the flooded surface. The Cinturado Weather Active and Cross Climate 2 both delivered a capable performance, especially considering their all-weather design. But the Pirelli unfortunately missed our testing in the deeper water. With what felt like limited wet grip once again, the Weather Peak was a couple 100ths behind the Michelin, but maintained competitive grip in the deeper water. Finally, the Defender 2 and P7 AS Plus 3 rounded out the group in wet lateral traction figures for both tests.
Testing on the wet track represents how well each tire uses its objective traction and dynamic capability in combined maneuvers that simulate real-world emergency avoidance. The Celsius Sport, Quad-Track Pro Plus, and Assurance Weather Ready 2 were at the top of the charts with sub 34-second laps, a feat that's even more impressive when considering they're all-weather tires. The next group was an appreciable step back, with less than 0.2 of a second separating the Primacy Tour AS, True Contact Tour 54, and Chinchorado Weather Active. The Cross Climate 2 required an additional 0.2 beyond the Pirelli, and the Turanza Quiet Track was on the borderline of what we would consider a good performance. The Weather Peak, Defender 2, and P7 AS Plus 3 all required more than 35 seconds to complete our lap. While we still consider that to be acceptable, they definitely left us wanting more. Like our previous touring tire test, in the dry we're also performing the emergency lane change maneuver alongside the usual lateral traction testing around the skid pad and 60 to 0 mile an hour braking distances. We can get a good idea of a tire's capabilities with just lateral traction and braking, but the ELC helps give us an idea of how a tire puts everything together through aggressive transitions with lots of dynamic force. It's a real-life test for a real-world situation.
All right, Bridgestone Turanza Quiet Track for the emergency lane change. Ready, steady, go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh. You know, it pushes a little bit, but then it recovers and it snaps a little bit.
That's the thing, it understeers and then it quickly oversteers. So it's like, if you get it right, you'll make it about half the time.
Bridgestone Weather Peak. Turn
And understeer.
and understeer and oversteer. Oh wow! So we've passed the emergency lane change zero times.
Yeah.
Do you think I miscounted that?
No.
You want to tally it up again?
Zero.
Continental True Contact Tour 54 and back.
Easy peasy.
That wasn't bad at all. It didn't make it easily, but it made it every time. It
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it was every time.
yeah, communicates well with you. It's stable, feels urgent, but not like overly urgent. Nicely gets the job done. Okay, Goodyear Assurance Weather Ready 2. In and back. And it's just so easy.
That was easy.
No drama, no excitement for the camera.
It was definitely the driver. It made it every time without issue.
Yep, literally every time we did not fail on this tire. Michelin Defender 2. Oh, I'm nervous. Oh, yeah, okay. I will say I didn't make it through every time.
Didn't either.
I'd say most of the time, but it has that ramp up in steering response. So it's like a little response and then all of a sudden there's too much and then you're coming back the other way and it really wants to step the tail out and it's, again, it
Can be a handful, especially from the rear end. Yeah. Michelin Cross Climate 2. Yeah,
all right.
a little more tail happy.
Yeah, a little tail out
But,
action there. I will say that the front end pushed a little bit, both at that initial input and then when you're coming back the other direction.
It's a touring tire.
Right, it's a touring tire, it's not a performance tire. And then like you said, the tail kind of stepped out a touch, but really wasn't bad. Yeah. All right, Michelin Primacy Tour AS. Nice steering response. And we made it. I would say this has the sportiest steering response of any tire we've tested so far.
Yeah.
The rear axle wants to engage.
Yes.
If you stick with it, it's okay. If you would get nervous and give it some kind of incorrect input, it could be a bit of a handful though. Pirelli Chinchorado Weather Active.
It pushed. It was a little pushy, a little smeary.
And until it slows down enough that the front end grips, and then the rear wants to step out. It's
Classic move.
right.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you're sideways and you're not quite sure where you're gonna go.
Yeah, that's a little vague. Not super responsive on the front end. Pirelli P7 AS Plus 3. Hey, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, steering.
you like this one more than I did.
responsive. Yeah, I do like
It was-
this one more than you do.
It was good. It was good for Grand Touring all-season tire. Front end is a little bit sharper than its all-weather.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah, it doesn't step
But
out.
not
quite
as sharp
sideways
as some in the test.
Certainly not. This is the Toyo Celsius Sport.
Okay, okay. All right. That was easy.
Wood ELC again. That was,
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
wow, it felt good on the front end. The steering felt nice. I mean, I could do that one-handed. I'm gonna do it one-handed.
I don't think you should.
Bridgestone Quad-Track Pro Plus. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you made it that time. Some of the times that I was doing it, I didn't make it. It was kind of really like speed sensitive. If I was just a little bit too fast, it wasn't gonna make it. If my steering, if it was a little off, it wasn't gonna make it. So it's like 45 is right at the limit for what this tire can do.
Designed to test panic braking in the dry, our 60-0 braking results were once again led by the Primacy Tour AS, which brought the test vehicle to a halt in 123 feet. 4 feet further was its all-weather brand counterpart, the Cross Climate 2, and its standard touring counterpart Defender 2 was just 2 more beyond that. The Continental matched the Defender 2, getting in just under the 130-foot mark. The Assurance Weather Ready 2 led a group that all stopped between 130 and 140 feet, and finally the Weather Peak seemed to struggle with longitudinal grip, finally getting the car stopped in 146 feet. Around the skid pad, the competition was extremely close on the front-wheel drive Camry. With most of the group separated by 0.02 of a G, there wasn't a big variance in objective grip. We did find the Weather Peak once again struggling for grip at the limit relative to the group, and the Cross Climate 2 delivering predictable feel at the limit but trailing the others.
That was a great test with a lot of genuinely impressive tires, and we had a lot of really cool comparisons too. We had standard touring versus grand touring. We had all season and all weather. We even got to look at some tires from the same manufacturers that occupy pretty similar places in the market.
Yeah, but those aren't the only comparisons we're going to make out here today. Like you mentioned, this is our second touring test of the year, but with our new testing protocol, we actually run a common control tire throughout each segment. So this allows us to kind of compare tests, which is something we've never been able to do before.
Right, so when we look at the results from this test, we're going to start with the 11 tires that we tested here. But then we're going to add in the tires from 2024 Test 4, which was our first touring tire test of the year. That's going to allow you to compare the biggest names in the category head to head.
Testing this group on the road effectively reminded us that if you value luxurious refinement, it's hard to go wrong with a premium touring tire. Most of them are just so good at blending a smooth and quiet driving experience with satisfying, sometimes even sporty steering characteristics. Looking at the on-road scores for these tires compared to our last touring tire test, we can see that the top 8 tires in this group scored higher than the number 3 tire from the last test. And that's not to say that the last bunch of competitors were deficient, it just highlights how good this group truly is. Many of the tires in this test delivered strong results in the wet, with the Celsius Sport, Assurance Weather Ready 2, Quad-Track Pro Plus, and Primacy Tour AS at the top of the charts. The Cinturado Weather Active, Cross Climate 2, True Contact Tour 54, and Turanza Quiet Track formed a group of satisfying if not standout performers, while the P7 AS Plus 3, Defender 2, and Weather Peak fell to the bottom of the ratings. In the wet, there was less separation between the groups from our 2 touring tests. When looking at this metric, they were essentially evenly mixed.
When looking at the overall ratings, it was a close race. The top 5 tires were tightly grouped, but the Goodyear Assurance Weather Ready 2 earned the highest combined score. The Toyo Celsius Sport, Vredestein Quad-Track Pro Plus, Michelin Primacy Tour AS, and Pirelli Cinturado Weather Active were all less than 1/4 of a point separated from the top spot. A tiny step back, and still within 1/3 of a point of the leader, were the Pirelli P7 AS Plus 3, Continental True Contact Tour 54, and Michelin Cross Climate 2. The Bridgestone Turanza Quiet Track was where we just began to see some appreciable separation, and the Michelin Defender 2 and Bridgestone Weather Peak round out the group. When we consider the full picture of warm weather performance between our 2 touring tire test groups, we see the top 3 from our previous test fit in nicely with the options here. From there, the results are a little lower in the overall hierarchy, but still satisfying and acceptable for the category.
It's really awesome to see all these touring tires compared head to head. Tires in this test all were really good on the road, and frankly, all were pretty darn good in the wet too.
Yeah, and that's extra impressive when you consider that 6 of them are all-weather tires. Generally, on-road refinement and wet traction are direct trade-offs for that enhanced light snow traction. So let's see how they shake out in our winter testing.
And here we are, it's early 2025 and we're back with our winter testing results.
Yeah, we've evaluated acceleration and braking traction on polished ice at our local skating rink. Then we headed north to a dedicated winter testing facility where we again evaluated acceleration and braking traction, but this time on packed snow. And on top of that, we used a handling loop to find out how each tire performs up to and well beyond the limits.
Right, and as you'd expect, it's a very thorough process designed to highlight tire strengths and perhaps expose any weaknesses we find. So let's get out there and see what's what. On the ice, the Cinturado Weather Active led the test in acceleration and braking. with the Cross Climate 2 following close behind in both metrics. Moving back about a half car length in braking and about a half a second in 60-foot acceleration time, the Assurance Weather Ready 2 led a tightly packed group of 5 tires. The Defender 2 served to define a point where the performance wasn't quite what we'd hoped for, even from an all-season tire. And the Celsius Sport was a disappointment, requiring more than a car length longer to come to a stop than its test-leading all-weather counterparts. We test 0 to 12 miles per hour acceleration and 25 to 0 braking in the snow, and we measure both in feet, so we report the distance required to accelerate from a stop to 12 and the distance needed to bring the vehicle to a rest from 25. This allows us to add both measurements together to come up with a single number that's representative of each tire's straight line traction in the snow. When considering this overall distance, we saw big differences in this test, with nearly 40 feet separating the test-leading Michelin Cross Climate 2 from the Michelin Defender 2 at the back of the group. Interestingly, the third Michelin entry, the Primacy Tour AS, was neatly in the middle of its brandmates. The WeatherPeak, Assurance Weather Ready 2, and Quad-Track Pro Plus all delivered solid traction. While we would have liked more from the other 2 all-weather products in the test, the Chinchorado Weather Active and Celsius Sport.
Acceleration and braking traction are important, but we're also interested in how drivable a tire is, how well it turns, and how it behaves once you step past the limit when a driver asks for more traction than it has. Our subjective evaluations, combined with the objective lap time from each tire, tells us the rest of the story. There was a sizable spread in our on-track evaluation as well, with almost 2 full subjective points and nearly 8 seconds separating the extremes of the group. In our drivers' scores, 6 of the top 7 finishers were all-weather products, with the Turanza Quiet-Track sticking its nose in as the only non-3 Peak Mountain Snowflake branded tire in the top 5. The 4 top finishing tires all delivered satisfying blends of good acceleration and braking traction, confident steering and cornering, and stability at the limit. As we moved down the chart, none of the tires delivered the full package in the same way as the leaders. Each one had some minor imbalance or undesirable trait, or just lacked the absolute traction to hang with the best in the test. So this was a big test filled with top-tier products.
Yeah.
Some of them were all-weather and some of them aren't, and we found a big difference across the group.
Oh, yeah.
I think that maybe some of the results will be what people expected, but at least a few of these are going to come as a surprise.
I think so. So we can see all their winter results, but every one of the tires in this test has the promise of year-round performance.
Yes.
So to evaluate how well they deliver on that promise, we combine their summer and winter results for an all-encompassing score to see how they stack up against each other.
Right.
And on top of that, we're going to combine the previous touring tire tests to see how they all line up. Here's where each tire finished on our road, wet, and dry evaluation. When we add in the winter scores, we see there's not a huge shift in overall standings, which is actually a really good thing. It demonstrates that most of the tires in this group generally are strong, balanced performers year-round. And when we look at the overall results with winter from all 20 touring tires we tested this year, there's a solid group of 6 or 7 tires that rise to the top. Most are premium products, which provides a good illustration of how tire design, engineering, and manufacturing know-how can come together to deliver balanced, satisfying all-season products. We really had a great time putting together this huge test, and we hope it gives you everything you need to make that decision on how your next set of tires may affect you on your daily drive.
Right, because that's the whole point of our testing program, is to give you the information that you need to make the right tire choice based on your priorities and how, where, and what you drive. And we're gonna do this again next year, so be on the lookout. We're gonna have more tires and of course, anything new that comes out between now and then. So until next time, as always, thanks for watching.